Okay, I have some things to share today, and I think they're very interesting. And I found them, I think, a couple years ago, and yeah, but it still is important to me even today. And it's it's had a great impact on my thought, and I think it's pretty inspiring, and it's a piece of history. So these these items I'm talking about are actually some items of my father. And what it is that okay, the first item I would like to show is this book over here. And this book is actually a book on uh, general relativity. It, it's not by Einstein, it's by another scientist, Wolfgang Rindler, and it was my father's. And I guess this was a book he was studying when he was studying physics in college. And what's interesting about this book is that I found this book while rummaging around my grandparents' apartment in Beijing, China. And this book is pretty remarkable because, as you see, it's a book, and but you see, its pages are yellowed, and it's from many years of aging. And I would say if my father went to college in the 80s, it's been nearly 20 or 30 years now. And it's fascinating because this is a piece of history. And I just found it really fascinating because it's it's a textbook on some pretty advanced physics, and I've also found a textbook on quantum mechanics inside that apartment as well. A very thick one. I didn't bring it back. That was by Tanuji. And this one here, though, uh, so as you see, the pages are yellowed, and it's not a thick book. It's pretty short, concise, and I also say is that perhaps this was not an original. It probably was a it probably was a Chinese copy at the time when they did not have too many original books of their own. So this was the first import. This is probably instituted um, right after Deng's reforms in China. So it's probably one of the first or part of the first wave of scientific knowledge that entered China at about the time. And it seems a pretty good copy, though. It's not shoddy. It's very well binded. Its pages are very well sewn together, and from what I would say, it looks like the original. So but it's just amazing because it's in paperback, and I guess at the time after Mao Zedong died and Deng Xiaoping came along with his reforms, a lot of knowledge from the West was imported, especially philosophy and science books such as these. So it's a piece of history. And I was very surprised I found this. I was just messing around my grandparents' house, and I found this bookcase, and inside were all these books. I don't know where they came from. There are many copies: science, philosophy, Chinese, English, Russian, German, novels, old novels, future novels, uh, books on how to speak contemporary English, programming books, just random books from everywhere. Just I don't know. I don't even know how they wound it up there. But I was just flipping around and I found a lot of my my parents, my parents' old college stuff, and this was among one of them. And there's, like I said before, there was a quantum mechanics book that I found along with this. I didn't bring that back, but I brought this back because I thought it was a fascinating piece of history. And okay, and probably what was most interesting was not the book, but actually what was in the book. What I found inside the book, and I'm going to show you those items right now. And this is even more historical. This is really significant because these are pieces of history. I guess voices from history back from when my dad and his relatives, they communicated to each other. Back then they didn't have electronics, so they did it all by letter, all on paper, all in hand, all in writing. So I found some very fascinating items inside that book on general relativity. And the first one I want to show you is this. It's a card. And what this card is that this was actually my dad's college ID from the 80s. And this was when he was at Beijing University. And as you can see here, this is his photo back when he was a young man. And you see there's his photo, a stamp, some written notes, his name here. And yeah, so this is an amazing piece of history. And just for comparison, I would like to show you my own college ID. It's right here. Myself at UT Austin, but I think this picture is pretty shoddy. Maybe I'll take another one once I return, but maybe, once I'm done with college, I can give that card to my children and they say, hey, it's a piece of history. It's like where my dad went to school. It's a relic. So, I mean, yeah, maybe a good card as a gift to them. And so yeah, that was one of the items, his college ID card, and also some letters I found, which I find very fascinating. And most of it is written in Chinese, which I can't fully read. I can read some of it, but it's fascinating because, there's a lot of ideas contained in it, and they are letters written between my father and his relatives. So it does give you kind of a sense or an idea of what was going on at the time. And so I'd first like to start off with some notes I found inside the book, and these are very fascinating to find. These old notes from right here. I didn't know exactly what these were when I first saw them, when I first found them. But I know now. And I told my dad, and it seems like he's forgotten about it. And I know he wrote these, but it's been a very long time, 20 or 30 years. So he probably forgot that he wrote these. But what these notes are, I guess his original college notes on electromagnetics and Fourier analysis. You can find some integral equations, and we can find all these various Maxwell's equations, as well as some process theory the names of some prominent professors. And my dad knew these people when he was in college. It's just that he never saw them. He never saw them until he came to the United States. And I find this very fascinating because it's written on loose leaf, and it's all brown and yellow now. So it's a piece of history, and it's pretty tough for a 30 or so year old document. I can handle it, but I don't want to damage it. So yeah, those were his old college notes, and right here, what I found are probably two of his personal notes. And I find these very fascinating, very heartfelt, and very interesting. Without a doubt, a piece of history. And the first one I would like to show is this one over here. A brown envelope, some red print, and my dad's name, address, and his friend. As you can see here, all in Chinese characters. And a note written on the back, along with a stamp of the Great Wall. And this note here, from his friend, written completely in Chinese except for this phrase down here, "happy to you," which is, I guess, their slang English at the time for, happiness to you, or, we wish you a good time. And this letter is from my father's friend back in high school. Congratulating my father and speaking to my father once he got into college and asking him, how has he been? And hoping that he's doing well. And remembering him as a friend. And telling him to farewell. And also, if possible, to bring back some advanced books on math, physics, and philosophy, because obviously my dad's friend wanted to do as well as him. So this is it's a very important letter, if you ask me. It's I can tell you that this letter between my father's friend and my father is a very significant one, because is a very significant one because my father and this person, they were friends, they were friends by blood. Basically, when they were kids and they were aspiring, for their future to do well, wishing each other the best of luck competing, they sealed their friendship and promise in blood. Basically, I guess, a cut on the finger, blood, seal it in blood. So they were very important or close friends. And I would say they were true friends. And and they both competed alongside each other. They wound up in similar uh, spaces. Wounded up in uh, uh, wounded up in similar places, and it just shows you like how strong this friendship and like how far it got. And so that was one letter. Another one right here. This one right here. And here. This one is actually from my aunt, one of my three aunts on my father's side, to my father. It was basically his second sister writing a letter to him also while he was in college. Asking him how has he been, and I hope you're doing well. You're a smart kid, and we really hope that you're doing well. I'm not doing so well, and saying that I guess she was still in high school at the time, saying how her high school teacher, they opened up a chemistry club at around the time, and how supposedly she was too dumb to get in, but it's okay. And I guess she meant it in a humorous way, writing this other stuff, and also describing how at that time there was an incident of meningitis back in the city that my dad and aunt were from in China. My dad was in Beijing at the time. She was still in the original city that they grew up in. And this letter details all of that. The story of the chemistry club and the meningitis, and also I forgot there was this one last part that was written into it. If I can remember the Chinese translation for it. Oh yes, at the time she wanted, I believe it was a TV or some other thing. At that time, material appliances were not that plentiful in China, so it was considered a privilege or something special to own something like a color TV. So I was asking how she wanted a TV, how she didn't have enough money from it, and possibly one day they could buy one. And of course, the usual stuff, wishing my father the best of luck in college. And what's interesting here is that there's actually an original date here. It would be the third or the March of the year 1985. So March 18th, 1985. So this was dated from approximately 29 years ago. So nearly 30 years ago. So this is a letter written 30 years ago. It's very fascinating. So this is a very important letter, and now a piece of history, something to be treasured, written from my aunt, my dad's sister to him while he was in college, and it just shows you the camaraderie, or the love that these relatives had for one another at the time. It's very important. It's written by hand. It was written and it was delivered to my father, you know, um, by mail. It was delivered by mail to my father in college. So yeah, that's another artifact that I have from these things I've found along the book. If I can get this folding right, get it folded back together correctly. All right, I'll worry about that later. Wouldn't want to get damaged. So, so those are the artifacts that I found, and it's very interesting, and it these materials make me very happy, and it just amazes me because it's a piece of history, and you know, that generation, what they did, and now my generation, you know, how we're growing up, how we're making history, and you know, what we can do and what we can accomplish, and it's an inspiration. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll possibly see you next time I make a video.